He upgraded her to first class with my account while I stood beside him holding a standby slip. Sophie Grant smiled like she was sorry, but her fingers closed around the boarding pass as if it were a diamond ring. My husband looked at me in the middle of the airport lounge and said, "Amelia, don't make this ugly." I did not cry, I did not raise my voice. I took a photo of the boarding pass in Sophie's hand, another of the standby slip in mine, and one more of Julian's phone screen before he could turn it away. Then I turned off our shared location. By the time his plane landed in New York, I was gone, and my lawyer was waiting for him at arrivals. He upgraded her to first class with my account while I stood beside him holding a standby slip. Sophie Grant smiled like she was sorry, but her fingers closed around the boarding pass as if it were a diamond ring. My husband looked at me in the middle of the airport lounge and said, "Amelia, don't make this ugly." I did not cry, I did not raise my voice. I only looked at the 3 boarding documents spread across the marble counter. Julian Vale, Seat 2A, Sophie Grant, Seat 2B, Amelia Hartvale, standby. The lounge agent shifted uncomfortably behind the desk. Her name tag read Clara. She had already explained the situation twice, first in a professional tone, then in a softer one when she realized I was the wife. There was only one complimentary upgrade available under the account, Clara said. Mr. Vale authorized the use of the upgrade certificate and reward balance for MS Grant. I looked at Julian. My reward balance. His jaw tightened. Our account? No, I said. My account opened before we got married, linked to my business card funded by my travel miles. Sophie lifted one hand to her collarbone. A delicate gold bracelet slid down her wrist. I recognized it. Julian had told me he bought it for a client appreciation gift. "Amelia, please," she said. I told Julian I didn't need it, I can switch back. She did not move, she did not put the boarding pass down. Julian gave her the gentle look he used to give me when we were younger, and he thought my fears deserved patience. "You get anxious on long flights," he told her. The word struck me harder than the upgrade. I used to get anxious on flights. The first year we were married, I gripped Julian's hand from takeoff to landing. He teased me then, kissed my knuckles, told me I could sleep because he would keep watch. Somewhere along the way, I became the one who booked the tickets, packed the charges, checked the passports, kept the receipts, remembered the medication, upgraded his seat, and sat wherever there was room. Sophie became the woman who needed protecting. I became logistics. "We are flying to New York for the Whitmore dinner," I said. "The invitation is under my name." Julian lowered his voice. "And we are still going." "No, you and Sophie are going. I am on standby." He glanced around, embarrassed now, not because he had humiliated me but because people were noticing. A man in a navy suit had stopped pretending to read his tablet. A woman near the espresso machine looked at my standby slip and then at Sophie's first-class pass. Clara kept her eyes on the keyboard. Julian stepped closer. "It is a full flight. The agent said there will probably be a seat." "Probably. It's a short flight, 5 hours and 20 minutes. You fly all the time, so does Sophie." Sophie looked down. I just had a difficult year. There it was, her difficult year, her divorce, her move back to Seattle, her fragile laugh at dinner, her habit of calling Julian when her dishwasher leaked, when her ex sent a cold email, when she couldn't sleep, when she remembered college, when she felt alone for 8 months. Her difficult year had lived inside my marriage. At first, I had tried to be kind. Julian and Sophie had dated in college. They had not seen each other in years. She was newly divorced. He said she had no one. I believed him because I wanted to. Then came the late calls, then the lunches he forgot to mention, then the scarf in his passenger seat, then his mother saying, "Sophie understands Julian's world in a way you never quite did." I had asked Julian if there was something between them. He had laughed at me. "You're jealous of a woman whose life fell apart," he said. "That's not a good look, Amelia." So I stopped asking, but I did not stop noticing. Now Sophie stood beside him in the airport lounge wearing cream cashmere and my upgrade. Julian rubbed the bridge of his nose. "Can we not turn a travel issue into a marriage crisis?" I almost laughed. "A travel issue?" The agent cleared her throat. "Boarding begins in 12 minutes. "Fine," Julian said, relieved by the interruption. "Let's all calm down. Amelia, you wait at the gate. If a seat opens you get on, if not take the next flight. I'll have a car pick you up in New York." "A car?" I repeated. "Yes, and while I'm waiting to see whether I can get on the plane, Sophie sits next to you in first class." "Don't say it like that." "How should I say it?" His eyes hardened. "Like an adult." That word settled over me. Adult. For years, being adult meant swallowing discomfort so dinner stayed pleasant. It meant saying I understood when Julian forgot our anniversary because a client needed him. It meant wiring money to cover a closing cost he had miscalculated and never mentioning it again. It meant smiling when his mother praised Sophie at our table. It meant forgiving tone, absence, carelessness, and small betrayals because none of them were dramatic enough to justify leaving. But this was dramatic. This had a boarding pass, this had witnesses, this had my name on a standby list while another woman took my seat beside my husband. I picked up the standby slip and folded it once. Julian exhaled, mistaking my silence for surrender. Thank you. I looked at Clara. Can I have a printed record of the upgrade authorization? Her eyes flicked to Julian, his expression changed. Why? For my records? We don't need a record. I do. Clara hesitated. I can print the transaction summary for the account holder. I am the account holder. I placed my driver's license and airline membership card on the counter. Julian's voice sharpened. Amelia. Clara printed the page, the machine hummed. Sophie shifted beside him, her smile had thinned. I took the paper, folded it with the standby slip, and put both into the side pocket of my tote. Then I took out my phone. Julian watched me. What are you doing? Saving my boarding documents. For what? Clarity. He gave a short, humorless laugh. You're unbelievable. No, I said. I have been very believable for a long time. That's why you thought this would work. His face flushed. Sophie whispered, Julian, maybe I should just. Don't, he said too quickly. The word landed between the three of us. Don't give it back. Don't make me choose again. Don't ruin the version of myself where I am a good man helping a vulnerable woman, not a husband publicly replacing his wife. The boarding announcement came through the lounge speakers. First-class passengers for Flight 184 to New York were invited to board. Julian looked at me, waiting for the scene he expected. Tears, anger, a plea, something he could manage, dismiss, or later retell as me being emotional. I gave him none of it. Enjoy your flight, I said. Sophie blinked. Julian stared. You'll meet us there. No. What does that mean? It means no. He stepped closer. Amelia, don't be ridiculous. The Whitmore dinner is tomorrow. We need to be there. I smiled faintly. You should have thought of that before you left the person with the invitation on standby. His mouth opened. For the first time that morning, he seemed to remember that the New York trip was not his. The Whitmore Foundation had invited me first, not him. I had planned charity auctions for them years ago, back before I reduced my work to help Julian build his firm. Their director, Eleanor Whitmore, still called me personally every December. The dinner was private, powerful, and almost impossible to access without trust. Julian needed that room. Sophie wanted that room. I had been the door. You're not going to sabotage me over a seat, he said. A seat? I asked. You still think this is about a seat? He lowered his voice again. We will discuss this when you arrive. No, Julian, you will discuss it when you land. His eyes narrowed. What is that supposed to mean? I did not answer. I turned away from him and walked out of the lounge. My hands were steady. That surprised me. At the entrance, Clara called softly, Mrs. Vale. I looked back. She held out a small card. If you need the lounge incident report, customer relations can attach my statement. I saw the authorization. Julian heard her. So did Sophie. I took the card. Thank you, Clara. Then I walked toward the gate. Behind me, Julian said my name once, sharp and warning. I kept walking. At the gate, passengers lined up beneath the glowing sign. First class was almost finished boarding. Sophie stood near the front, close to Julian, her cream sleeve brushing his dark coat. When I arrived, Julian stepped out of line. Enough, he said. You're scaring Sophie. That was when something inside me became very still. Not dead, not numb, still. I looked past him at Sophie. She looked small and pale and perfectly positioned. She should be scared, I said. Julian's eyes flashed. What did you say? Not of me. Of what happens when a woman builds her comfort on another woman's silence. Sophie looked away. The gate agent scanned Julian's boarding pass. He waited one last second, as if giving me a chance to apologize for refusing to be abandoned gracefully. I did not. He took Sophie's carry-on handle. They walked down the jet bridge together. Just before the door swallowed them, he turned back and mouthed, Call me. I lifted my left hand slowly. I removed my wedding ring. His face changed. Then the jet bridge door closed. I stood there with the ring in my palm and my name still glowing on the standby screen. A gate agent called, Amelia Vale. I stepped forward. That's me. We may have a middle seat available near the back. I can't guarantee overhead space. I looked at the jet bridge, then at the boarding pass Sophie had carried like a prize, then at the standby slip in my hand. No, thank you, I said. The agent blinked. You don't want the seat? No. Are you sure? I placed the standby slip on the counter. I'm not flying standby anymore. I walked away before she could answer. In the wide corridor outside the gate, travelers rushed around me, families dragged suitcases, businessmen checked watches, a toddler cried near a vending machine, my phone vibrated. Julian, don't do this, Julian, board the plane, Julian, Amelia, this is childish. I opened our shared location app for 6 years. Julian had used it casually, to see when I left the grocery store, to ask why I was still at the bank, to tell me to pick up dry cleaning because I was nearby. It had seemed harmless. I tapped his name, stopped sharing location, then I opened my contacts and called the number I had saved 3 months earlier but never used. Margaret Shaw's office. A receptionist answered. This is Amelia Hartvale, I said. I need to speak with Margaret, tell her I'm ready to move forward. A pause, then Margaret's calm voice came on the line. Amelia. I looked through the airport glass at the plane pushing back from the gate. My husband just used my account to put his ex-girlfriend in first class and left me on standby. I said, he is landing in New York in 5 hours. Margaret did not gasp. Good lawyers did not waste breath. Do you have proof? Yes. Are you safe? Yes. Do you want separation papers served today? I watched the plane turn. For one moment, I remembered Julian on our honeymoon, asleep against my shoulder in an economy seat because we could not afford better. I remembered thinking I would build a life with him even if we always sat in the last row. Then I remembered Sophie's fingers closing over my first-class boarding pass. Yes, I said. And Margaret, I'm listening. I want him served when he lands. The first thing I did after leaving the gate was not cry. I went to the airline service counter and asked for a written confirmation that I had declined the standby seat. The woman behind the counter looked tired, kind, and confused. You want confirmation that you chose not to board? Yes, most people want proof they were denied boarding. I want proof I was offered the last available seat after my upgrade was reassigned. She studied my face, something in it must have told her not to ask unnecessary questions. She typed for a while, printed a page, stamped it and slid it toward me. Here you go, Mrs. Vale. Hart, I said. Pardon, my name is Amelia Hart. It was not legally true yet, but saying it felt like unlocking a door. I put the document in my tote beside Clara's card and the upgrade summary. Then I opened my banking app. Julian and I had 3 shared accounts, 1 household account for mortgage, utilities, groceries, 1 travel card account that was technically mine, but he used constantly, 1 investment bridge account he called temporary 2 years ago and never stopped leaning on. I did not drain anything, I did not do anything dramatic. Drama was his language, records were mine. I froze my travel card. I removed Julian as an authorized user from the airline account. I changed the password to my rewards portal. Then I scheduled a transfer of my next consulting payment into my personal account instead of the household account. Small steps, clean steps, legal steps. My phone exploded. Julian, why did your location disappear? Julian, Amelia, answer me. Julian, Sophie feels awful. You're proving exactly why I didn't want a scene. Julian, this dinner matters. There it was. Not, are you okay? Not, I hurt you. Not, I should not have done that. This dinner matters. I stared at the message until the letters blurred, not with tears, but with clarity. The dinner mattered because Julian had spent the past year trying to move from mid-level investment deals into private foundation real estate portfolios. The Whitmore Foundation owned historic properties, donor estates, and redevelopment land. One relationship could change his career. He had told me we were going together because we were a team. Then he brought Sophie, not officially, not as a date, not on paper. That was how Julian survived. He did not cross lines clearly. He leaned over them, touched them, blurred them, then accused me of drawing them too dark. I did not reply. Outside the airport, rain misted the glass canopy. Seattle had a way of making every ending look ordinary. No thunder, no cinematic storm, just damp pavement, gray light, and people getting into cars because life kept moving even when your marriage cracked open. I called Nina from the rideshare lane. She answered on the second ring. Why are you calling me from the airport? Aren't you supposed to be in New York? I didn't board. Silence. Then, where is Julian? On the plane, with Sophie. Yes. Another silence, sharper this time. I'm coming, she said. I can get a ride. Do not make me drive to the airport angry and not get to use the anger. Despite everything, I almost smiled. Nina Brooks had been my friend since I was 22 and too polite for my own good. She ran a small interior design studio, had a laugh like breaking glass, and believed every woman should keep a go bag, a separate account, and one friend who would lie to the police only in emergencies. 20 minutes later, her black SUV pulled up. I got in, she looked at my face, then at my bare left hand. Oh, Amelia. That was the first time my throat tightened, not in the lounge, not at the gate, not while Julian walked Sophie onto the plane, but in Nina's car. When someone looked at me and understood that humiliation had weight, I held up a hand. Don't hug me yet. Okay, if you hug me I might stop moving, then I won't hug you. She pulled away from the curb. Where are we going? Your place, if that's okay. My guest room has been waiting for the day you finally realized your husband was a designer trash can. Nina, what expensive exterior, full of garbage. I laughed once, it hurt on the drive. I told her everything, not all at once, in pieces, the lounge, the upgrade, the standby slip. Julian saying Sophie got anxious, Sophie saying she had a difficult year, the jet bridge, the ring. Nina's hands tightened on the steering wheel. He used your miles. Yes. Your account. Yes. To put his emotional support mistress in first class. Don't call her that. Fine. His unresolved college nostalgia project. I leaned my head against the window, my phone vibrated again. This time it was Evelyn, Julian's mother. Evelyn Vale never texted casually, her messages had the tone of engraved invitations and court summons. Evelyn, Julian just messaged me. Please do not embarrass this family over travel arrangements. Sophie is fragile. You are stronger than this. I showed Nina. She made a sound so sharp it almost became a word. Stronger than this. I repeated. That's what they call it when they want you to absorb the damage. Nina glanced at me. What are you going to do? Exactly what Margaret tells me is legal. Good. And exactly what Julian thinks I won't do. Better. At Nina's condo, I sat at her kitchen island and laid out the documents: standby slip, upgrade authorization, declined boarding confirmation, Clara's card, screenshots of Julian's messages, screenshot of Evelyn's message, a photo I had taken without thinking. Sophie and Julian at the gate, shoulder to shoulder, his hand on the handle of her carry-on. That photo made my stomach turn, not because it was intimate enough to prove an affair, because it was ordinary enough to reveal a habit. Margaret called at 1:17 p.m. I reviewed the documents you emailed. She said, the airport record is useful. The account authorization is cleaner than I expected. Cleaner. It shows the upgrade certificate originated from your individual travel account, not a marital account. It also shows Mr. Vale confirmed MS Grant as the recipient. Can that matter? In divorce, everything matters if it shows pattern, entitlement, misuse of separate resources, or emotional misconduct tied to financial decisions. I closed my eyes. Financial decisions. That was what Margaret had told me 3 months ago when I first met her. At the time, I had not wanted divorce, I wanted information. I told myself smart wives understood their options before they needed them. Margaret listened while I explained that Julian was not cruel. Exactly, he was distracted, he was generous to everyone but me. He had reconnected with an ex, but maybe I was insecure. Margaret asked one question. Do you feel smaller in your marriage than you did before it? I had not answered. I had cried in her office. Today I had my answer. What happens now? I asked. Do you still want him served at JFK? Yes. Then I will coordinate with a New York process server. I can have a packet delivered at arrivals if we know the flight. I gave her the flight number. What should be in the packet? Notice of legal separation, petition for divorce, temporary financial restraining notice which prevents unusual transfers, revocation of his authority on your separate travel and business accounts, notice that you are withdrawing as personal guarantor from the pending Mercer Street Bridge loan, subject to lender approval, and a letter instructing him to communicate through counsel. The Mercer Street loan. My pulse changed. Julian's biggest deal of the year depended on that loan. He had begged me to sign the guarantor form because his liquidity looked weaker after a delayed closing. He said it was temporary. He said we were married and married people backed each other. I signed because wives were supposed to believe in their husbands. Can I withdraw? I asked. You signed a conditional guarantee. The funds have not been disbursed. You have the right to revoke before closing if the lender accepts the revocation and no reliance has occurred. I already drafted the letter after our first consultation. I hoped you wouldn't need it. I looked at the ring on the counter. So did I. Nina slid a cup of tea toward me and sat quietly. Margaret continued. I need you to understand something. Serving him today will escalate the situation. He will be angry. He will likely accuse you of overreacting. He may try to come home immediately. He can try. Do not meet him alone. I won't. Do not argue by text. I won't. Do not threaten. Do not explain too much. Preserve records. I understand. She paused. Amelia, are you certain? Through Nina's window I could see the city under a low grey sky. Somewhere above the clouds Julian was in first class beside Sophie, drinking champagne, or pretending not to worry. Maybe he expected me to cool down, maybe he thought I would take the next flight, arrive tired and grateful, apologize for making things awkward, and wear a black dress to dinner tomorrow. Maybe he thought I was still the woman who rushed to fix whatever he broke. I am certain, I said. Then we moved today. After the call I opened my suitcase I had packed for New York carefully, 2 dresses, 1 navy suit, heels, jewelry, Julian's cufflinks. Because he always forgot them, a lint roller. Sophie had probably packed perfume and expectation. I removed Julian's cufflinks and placed them on Nina's counter. What are those? She asked. Proof that I used to prepare him for rooms he thought he entered alone. Nina's expression softened. This time when she hugged me I let her. For 30 seconds I fell apart. Not loudly, not dramatically, just enough for my body to admit what my mind had already decided. Then I washed my face. At 3:42 p.m. Margaret emailed a PDF titled Service Packet. Vale. I opened it. My name appeared on the first page. Amelia Hartvale, petitioner. Julian Reed Vale, respondent. The words looked strange, cold, liberating. At 4:09 p.m. my phone rang. Julian. I let it go to voicemail. He called again. Then Sophie texted me. Sophie, Amelia, I hope you know I never wanted to come between you two. Julian was just trying to be kind. I stared at the message. Kind, the word had been used like a weapon so many times. Kind to Sophie meant available. Kind to Evelyn meant silent. Kind to Julian meant useful. I typed one sentence, do not contact me again except through counsel. Then I took a screenshot and blocked her. At 5:36 p.m. Flight 184 landed in New York. I knew because I had tracked it. At 5:41 p.m. Margaret called. He's off the plane, she said. The server is in position. I held my breath. At 5:49 p.m. a message appeared from Julian. Julian, what the hell is this? I looked at the screen, then I turned the phone face down. I did not answer. For the first time in years, Julian had a problem I did not intend to solve. Julian sent 12 messages in 6 minutes. Julian, Amelia, Julian, pick up. Julian, there is some woman here claiming to represent you. Julian, this is insane. Julian, you sent a lawyer to the airport. Julian, in front of Sophie. Julian, do you understand what you've done? Julian, call me now. Julian, the hotel says the suite reservation was changed. Julian, did you cancel the car? Julian, Amelia, stop. Julian, you are humiliating me. I read each message only once, then I saved them to the folder Margaret had told me to create. Evidence was not always dramatic. Sometimes it was just a man documenting his priorities in real time. He was not worried about our marriage. He was worried about Sophie seeing papers. He was worried about the suite. He was worried about the car. He was worried about humiliation. His, not mine. Nina stood beside me at the kitchen island with a glass of wine she had poured and forgotten to drink. Is it terrible that I'm enjoying this? She asked. Maybe. Am I going to stop? No. My phone rang again. This time it was not Julian, it was Margaret. He has been served, she said. I leaned against the counter. How did he react? Poorly, but legally uneventfully. The server confirmed identity and handed him the packet near the arrival's exit. Ms. Grant was present. I closed my eyes. I imagined it, the automatic doors at JFK sliding open, Julian in his tailored navy coat, Sophie beside him with her first-class softness, his phone buzzing because the hotel car was missing, a woman stepping forward with a padded envelope. Julian Reed Vale. He would have smiled politely at first. Julian loved strangers until they inconvenienced him. Then the papers, the name, mine. I also notified the Whitmore office that you were unable to attend in person due to a personal legal matter. Margaret said, per your instruction, I did not mention him except to clarify that Mr. Vale is not authorized to appear on your behalf. My throat loosened. Thank you, Eleanor Whitmore's assistant replied. They hope you are safe and will hold your invitation for a private call next week. Of course they did. Because I had known those people before Julian learned how to pronounce donor stewardship without sounding impressed by himself. What about the hotel? I asked. You booked the suite with your card and under your rewards profile. You were within your rights to cancel the attached amenities and remove his guest access. I did not cancel his room entirely. That would create unnecessary noise. He still has the standard room his firm booked. I almost smiled. Julian had upgraded Sophie to first class. I had downgraded him to his own reality. Good, I said. He may come back tonight. He said the dinner matters. Then he may stay long enough to try to salvage it. But Amelia, men like Julian often return when they realize the person they dismissed controlled more of the structure than they understood. Men like Julian. I wondered how many Margarets had watched women like me become paperwork after years of becoming furniture. What should I do tonight? I asked. Rest, do not answer calls. Tomorrow we begin formal disclosures. I also recommend you retrieve personal documents from the marital home while he is out of state. I can go tonight. Take someone with you. I looked at Nina. She lifted her glass. Already wearing shoes. We went after dark. The house was in Queen and a grey Craftsman with white trim and hydrangeas I had planted myself. When Julian and I bought it, he said it looked like the kind of house where people learn to be happy. I had believed houses could teach people things. Inside, the air smelled like cedar, coffee, and the expensive room spray Evelyn bought because she thought my lavender candles were too provincial. I stood in the entryway for a moment. Nina touched my arm. You okay? No, but I'm clear. Clear is better than okay. We moved quickly. Passport, birth certificate, social security card, tax records, prenup, insurance papers, external hard drive, jewelry inherited from my grandmother, my laptop, client files, a small box of letters from my father, who died before he could tell me not to marry a man who enjoyed being admired more than being loyal. In the bedroom, my side of the closet was neat. Julian's was chaos hidden behind expensive doors. A navy tie hung over the chair, the one I packed for New York. He had forgotten it after all. I laughed quietly. Nina looked up from the dresser. What? I packed his cufflinks. He forgot his tie. Symbolic. Pathetic. Also symbolic. In the bathroom, Sophie's presence appeared before I was ready. A small white cosmetic bag sat under Julian's sink. Not mine. Inside were travel-size moisturizer, a lipstick, and prescription anti-anxiety medication with Sophie Grant's name on the label. My body went cold. Nina saw my face. What is it? I held up the bag. That was here, under his sink. Take a photo. I did. Every angle, the bag in the cabinet, the label, the items. Then I put everything back exactly as I found it. This was not proof of sex, it was proof of access. Access mattered. Sophie had been in my home often enough to leave medication under my husband's sink. Not in the guest bathroom, not in the kitchen, under his sink. My phone buzzed. Julian, you had no right to cancel the suite. Then Julian, Sophie is crying. Then, Julian, are you proud of yourself? I looked at the cosmetic bag for the first time all day. Anger rose hot and clean. I typed, then stopped. Margaret's voice echoed in my head. Do not argue by text. I deleted the message. Instead, I sent the photos to Margaret. Subject, item found in marital home. Her reply came 5 minutes later. Received. Do not remove it. I did not. In the office, I found more than I expected. Julian had always been careless with emotional things and meticulous with business things. But Sophie blurred both categories. In his desk drawer, beneath a stack of Mercer Street loan drafts, lay a folded program from a university reunion. On the back, in Sophie's looping handwriting, some doors never close. Thank you for seeing me when no one else did. S. The date was 7 months ago, 2 weeks before Julian told me Sophie had randomly reached out because she was struggling. There were receipts too, a boutique hotel bar, 2 dinners, a jewelry store, all charged to Julian's personal card, not the joint account. That almost made it worse. He had known enough to hide the spending but not enough to stop. Nina stood at the doorway. Amelia. I looked up. She held a package, cream box, gold ribbon. My name was on the shipping label. No, not my name, Mrs. Vale. Inside was a silk scarf. The gift note read, for New York. I thought this color would look beautiful beside Julian. Sophie. Beside Julian, not on me. Beside him. A woman did not send another woman a scarf like that unless she wanted to watch her wear submission as an accessory. Nina read the note over my shoulder. I want to commit a small felony. No, a decorative felony. No. I put the scarf back in the box and photographed everything. Then I sat in Julian's office chair and opened the desk drawer where we kept old files. The prenup was there. I had signed it because Julian's mother insisted. She thought I was protecting myself from looking greedy by accepting it. What she did not know was that my lawyer had rewritten half the clauses before I agreed. At the time, Julian had laughed. It's just paperwork, he said. We'll never need it. Clause 8.3 Misuse of separate property or individually held accounts for the benefit of a third party in the context of marital misconduct may be considered. Dissipation subject to reimbursement. Clause 10.1 Either spouse may revoke informal business support, introductions, guarantees or authorizations not contractual bound. Clause 12 For in the event of separation caused by documented infidelity, emotional affair, financial misconduct, or reputational harm, temporary exclusive use of the marital residence may be negotiated or offset. I ran my finger over the text, not because I enjoyed it, because I needed to remember that past Amelia had tried to protect future Amelia. Even while believing she would never need protection, Nina leaned against the desk. You knew, I suspected. For how long? Long enough to feel stupid. Don't do that. What? Punish yourself for trusting your husband. That was his job to deserve. He failed. That doesn't make you stupid. I looked down at the prenup. Maybe not. My phone rang again. Evelyn. I ignored it. A voicemail appeared. Against better judgment, I played it on speaker. Amelia, this is Evelyn. I don't know what spectacle you think you're creating, but Julian is in New York for an important professional opportunity. Sophie is a guest, and your behavior has embarrassed everyone. Marriage requires grace. Call my son and fix this before you do permanent damage. Nina whispered. Oh, I hate her in cursive. I saved the voicemail, then I sent it to Margaret at 9:28 p.m. As we were leaving, a car pulled into the driveway. For one breath I thought Julian had come back, but the woman who stepped out was not Julian, it was Evelyn. She wore a camel coat and pearls, as if arriving at a crisis dressed for a luncheon could make her morally superior. Her eyes landed on the box in my arms. What are you doing in my son's house? She asked. I looked at the home I had paid half the mortgage on, furnished, cleaned, repaired, and kept warm through 6 years of marriage. Then I looked back at her, taking my life out of it. Evelyn Vale had never raised her voice at me. She did not need to. Some women used volume. Evelyn used temperature. She could freeze a room by looking disappointed in it. That night, standing in my own driveway, she looked at the boxes in my arms as if I had been caught stealing silver. You are being impulsive, she said. Nina opened her mouth. I touched her wrist. This was mine. No, I said. I was impulsive when I believed your son every time he told me not to worry. Evelyn's eyes sharpened. Julian told me you sent legal papers to the airport. I did, while he was with a guest, while he was with the woman he gave my seat to. It was a flight upgrade. It was a choice. Men make clumsy choices. Mature wives do not destroy marriages over them. I looked at her pearls, perfect, pale, strung tight. Did Julian tell you he used my account? Her mouth tightened. Did he tell you Sophie was in my home often enough to leave medication in our bathroom? A flicker, small but real. She recovered quickly. Sophie has been through a painful divorce. Julian has a generous heart. No, Julian has a hungry ego. Sophie feeds it. You bless it. I funded it. Nina made a soft sound behind me that might have been approval. Evelyn stepped closer. Be careful, Amelia. Whatever you think you are proving, you are still his wife. Not for long. Divorce is not a tantrum you can take back once people calm down. I know. Do you? She asked. Because from where I stand it looks like you were embarrassed in public and decided to punish everyone. That should have hurt. A year ago it would have. I would have explained that I was not punitive, that I loved Julian, that I had tried, that I was tired, that Sophie made me uncomfortable, that I did not want to be jealous or dramatic, that I wanted help. But Evelyn was not asking to understand. She was asking me to shrink. I placed the box in Nina's car and turned back. Your son put another woman in first class with my account and left me on standby. He walked onto that plane with her. He told me not to make it ugly, so I didn't. I made it legal. Evelyn's face changed. Not guilt. Calculation. The Whitmore dinner, she said. There it was, the thing underneath the thing. Yes, I said, the Whitmore dinner. You know how much that opportunity means to him. I know how much it meant when he needed me to get him invited. Amelia, I am not calling Eleanor. I am not smoothing this over. I am not pretending Sophie is a guest. I am not lending my name to a man who treated me like extra luggage. Evelyn inhaled slowly through her nose. For the first time since I had known her, she looked uncertain. Then she said the sentence that ended any remaining hope I had that she might one day see me. Sophie would never have made him feel this unsupported. I nodded. Then Sophie can support him. I got into Nina's car. Evelyn called after me. You are making a mistake. I looked at her through the open window. No, I said, I am correcting one. Nina drove away before Evelyn could answer. Back at the condo, I expected to collapse. Instead, I worked. Pain turned out to be useful when given a spreadsheet. I opened my laptop and began building a timeline. 7 months ago, reunion program note. 6 months ago, first unexplained dinner receipt. 5 months ago, Julian changed his phone passcode. 4 months ago, Sophie called him during our anniversary dinner. He stepped outside for 23 minutes. 3 months ago, I met Margaret. 2 months ago, Sophie attended Evelyn's birthday dinner and sat beside Julian because Evelyn said the light was better there. 6 weeks ago, Julian asked me to sign the Mercer Street guarantee. 3 weeks ago, Sophie sent the Scarf today, airport lounge, first class upgrade, standby. I added documents under each date. Records did not heal betrayal, but they gave it shape at midnight. An email arrived from Eleanor Whitmore, subject, checking in, dear Amelia. Margaret Shaw's office informed us that you were unable to travel due to a personal legal matter. I will not intrude. I only want to say that you are respected here, with or without any guest beside you. When you are ready, call me directly. Warmly, Eleanor. I read it 3 times. With or without any guest beside you. Julian had thought he was the guest of honor. He had always been my guest. At 12:18 a.m. Julian called again. I let it ring, then a voicemail. This time I played it. His voice was lower, less angry, more dangerous because he was trying to sound reasonable. Amelia, this has gone far enough. I don't know what Margaret told you, but serving me in an airport was cruel. Sophie had a panic attack. The hotel was a disaster. The suite was gone, the car was gone, and the Whitmore office says they won't discuss tomorrow's dinner with me without your authorization. You need to call them and fix that. Afterward we can talk about us. I know you're hurt, but you cannot blow up our life because you felt slighted. I saved it. Then another voicemail came 5 minutes later. Also, the Mercer lender emailed me. Did you revoke the guarantee? Amelia, that is not just our marriage, that is my work. You know what this deal means. You signed that because you believed in me. Don't weaponize it. I almost answered that one, not to argue, to tell him belief was not a permanent power of attorney. Instead, I wrote the sentence in my notes. Belief is not a permanent power of attorney. The next morning, Margaret's office felt like another country. Quiet carpets, glass walls, women who spoke in complete sentences and billed in 6-minute increments. Margaret Shaw was in her late 50s, silver-haired, elegant and unsentimental. She wore navy, not black. She once told me black made clients feel like they were attending a funeral, and divorce was not death, it was surgery. She spread my documents across the conference table. You did well preserving records, she said. I feel like a detective in my own humiliation. That is often how divorce begins. She reviewed the airport evidence first, then the house photos, then the voicemails. When she reached Evelyn's, she looked up. His mother may be useful. She confirms knowledge. She also demonstrates pressure to protect his reputation and business opportunity. I don't want to drag his mother into court unless I have to. Noted. But Amelia, you need to stop protecting people from the consequences of what they said to you. That sentence found a place inside me and stayed there. Margaret continued. The strongest immediate leverage is financial access. We will not do anything improper, but we will enforce boundaries. You are not required to fund his travel, business development, or third-party companionship. The legal language was almost funny, almost. What about the house? I asked. Jointly owned for now. Neither of you should remove shared property beyond personal items. If he returns, he has access. But we can request temporary exclusive use if conflict escalates. I don't want the house. Margaret looked at me. Are you sure? I wanted what I thought we were building in it. Without that, it's lumber and debt. She nodded once. Then we negotiate sale or buyout. My phone buzzed on the table. Julian. Margaret glanced at it. Do you want me to answer? No. It stopped. Then a text. Julian, I am coming home tonight. Be at the house. A second message. Julian, alone. Margaret's expression hardened when I showed her. You will not meet him alone. I know. I am sending a letter now, all communication through counsel. I already told Sophie that. Margaret paused. Sophie contacted you. I showed her the message. She read it, then leaned back. She is either careless or confident. Both. Do not block Julian. Mute him if needed, but preserve messages. Sophie can remain blocked unless counsel advises otherwise. I nodded before I left. Margaret handed me a folder. Read this carefully. Temporary separation plan, account boundaries, home access instructions, witness list. Also, I included a copy of the prenup with relevant clauses marked. I took it. The folder was heavier than I expected, or maybe I was. In the elevator, I looked at my reflection in the mirrored wall. No ring, no makeup except what survived yesterday. Hair pulled back, eyes tired but not broken. When the doors opened, my phone buzzed again, this time from an unknown number. A photo loaded. Sophie. She was seated at a hotel bar in New York, eyes red, a champagne flute in front of her. Julian's hand was visible at the edge of the frame, resting near hers. Text. You think papers can erase what he feels? I stared at it, then I smiled for the first time since the lounge, not because it did not hurt, because Sophie had made a mistake. I forwarded the message to Margaret, then I saved it under the timeline. Subject: Sophie intimidation message. Julian had given her first class. She had given me motive. Julian returned from New York 27 hours after he landed, not because he wanted to save the marriage, because the marriage had stopped saving him. The Whitmore dinner went on without him. Eleanor's assistant sent me a polite note saying Mr. Vale had attempted to appear at check-in with an unregistered guest and was informed that the event was private. They did not elaborate. They did not need to. I imagined Sophie in a dress chosen for photographs, standing beside Julian under chandeliers she believed were about to become her new backdrop. I imagined the registration woman asking for names. I imagined Julian saying mine. I imagined the pause. There are small humiliations men only recognize when they happen to them. The next morning Evelyn invited me to dinner. Her message was careful. Evelyn, we need to sit down as a family. Julian is devastated. No lawyers. No theatrics, just a conversation. I sent it to Margaret. Margaret replied, you are not obligated to attend. If you choose to go, take your own transportation. Do not sign anything. And record notes immediately afterward. Washington is a two-party consent state for audio recording. Do not secretly record. I almost declined. Then Evelyn sent another message. Evelyn, Sophie will be there because she has been unfairly blamed. I stared at that sentence for a long time. Then I decided to go, not because they deserved my presence, because some lies needed an audience before they could die properly. Nina objected. Absolutely not. I won't be alone. There will be a table full of witnesses. A table full of people who think you're the problem. Exactly, Amelia. I need to see how far they'll go. No, you don't. You already know. I need them to say it clearly. Nina studied me. You want them on record. Not audio, memory, notes, follow-up emails, patterns. She sighed. You spend one day with a lawyer and become terrifying. Good. Evelyn's house sat on a hill with a view of Lake Washington, all glass and pale stone, an expensive restraint. I had spent years bringing flowers to that house. Peonies for Easter, white roses for Evelyn's birthday, amaryllis at Christmas because she once said red was vulgar but tolerated it in December. That night I brought nothing. Julian opened the door. He looked worse than I expected, tired, unshaven, still handsome in the way that had once made strangers trust him and me forgive him. His eyes dropped immediately to my bare hand. You came, he said. Your mother asked for a family conversation. His mouth tightened at the word family. Behind him, Sophie appeared in a soft grey sweater, not cream this time, grey morning costume. Amelia, she said gently. I walked past them without answering. Evelyn waited in the dining room. Julian's younger sister, Claire, sat near the window looking uncomfortable. Claire and I had never been close, but she had always been kind in a distracted way. Her husband was absent, smart man. The table was set for 5. Sophie sat beside Julian. Of course, I took the chair across from them. Evelyn began before the soup arrived. I think emotions have overtaken facts, she said. So tonight we will speak plainly. Wonderful, I said. Julian shot me a look. Evelyn folded her hands. Sophie did not ask to be placed in the middle of your marriage. No, I said. She only sat there. Sophie flinched. Julian leaned forward. Do not attack her. I turned to him. You invited her to a private donor dinner using my invitation. I invited her to New York because she needed support. Support for what? He hesitated. Sophie answered. My divorce was finalized last month. The trip felt like a way to start over, with my husband. Her eyes filled. Evelyn sighed. This is exactly the tone that makes resolution difficult. Claire looked down at her plate. I reached into my bag and took out a folder. Julian's eyes went to it immediately. No lawyers, remember, he said. These are not legal filings, they are records. I placed the first page on the table. Airport upgrade authorization. Julian looked away. Evelyn glanced at it, then frowned. What is this supposed to prove? That Julian used my individual airline account to upgrade Sophie to first class. I told you I would reimburse the miles, Julian said. When? What? When did you tell me that? At the lounge while I held the standby slip at the gate, when you told me not to embarrass you on the plane from seat 2A, or after my lawyer met you at arrivals. His face reddened. Sophie whispered. I offered to switch. I slid the second page forward. Customer statement from Clara, the lounge agent. She notes that you did not surrender the boarding pass after allegedly offering. Sophie's tears stopped too quickly. Evelyn picked up the page. Julian said. You got the lounge agent involved. No, you involved her when you made her process the upgrade. Claire finally spoke. Julian, why didn't you give Amelia the seat? The room changed. A simple question from someone not yet invested enough to lie. Julian rubbed his forehead. Because Amelia travels constantly. Sophie was anxious. I thought Amelia would understand. Understand what? Claire asked. That it was just a seat. I looked at Claire. She understood then, maybe not everything but enough. I slid the third page out. My account statement. The upgrade certificate came from a rewards pool tied to my consulting travel, not marital spending, not Julian's firm, mine. Evelyn set down her spoon. This is petty. No, I said. Petty is making your wife stand in a lounge while your ex holds her seat and calling her childish for noticing. Julian's hand hit the table. Enough. The silverware jumped. Sophie placed a hand on his arm. I watched it. He did not remove her hand. Thank you, I said quietly. For what? He snapped. For proving my point in front of your family. Sophie withdrew her hand. Evelyn's gaze moved from Sophie to Julian. For the first time I saw doubt enter the room and take a chair. Julian noticed too. He softened his voice. Amelia, I know the airport looked bad. It was bad, but nothing happened between Sophie and me. I opened the folder again. This is the part where you should be careful. His face changed. Sophie went still. I placed the university reunion program on the table, protected in a clear sleeve. Julian stared at it. Sophie whispered, "Where did you get that?" "In my husband's desk." Evelyn picked it up and read the note on the back. "Some doors never close." Claire closed her eyes. Julian said, "That is sentimental. It doesn't mean." I placed the hotel bar receipts beside it. Dinners, then the jewelry receipt, bracelet. Sophie's hand moved to her wrist, then the photo of her cosmetic bag under Julian's sink, medication in our bathroom. Evelyn's face drained of color. Julian stood. "You went through my things, our things, in our house after you told me to wait at home alone." He looked at his mother, then at Sophie, then at me. For a second I saw the calculation collapse. He could not be the noble helper, misunderstood husband, and innocent friend all at once. The documents took up too much space. Sophie began to cry. This time I believed the fear. "You don't understand," she said. "Julian was the only person who made me feel safe." I looked at her. "Then you should have asked him to be safe without taking what belonged to me." "I didn't take anything. You took the seat." Her face twisted. "It was first class," she said, "not a marriage bed." The room went silent. There she was, not fragile, not sorry, just irritated that the symbol mattered to the woman it was designed to wound. I stood. "Thank you, Sophie." She blinked. "For what?" "For finally telling the truth in your own voice." Evelyn looked at Julian. "Is there more?" He did not answer. That was answer enough. I gathered my copies, leaving one set on the table. Julian stepped toward me. "Don't walk out." "I already did, Amelia." I turned. He looked less angry now, more frightened. "We can fix this." "No," I said. "You can explain it, you can regret it. You can pay for it, but you cannot fix the moment you walked onto that plane with her and left me behind." Evelyn rose slowly. "Amelia, wait." I looked at the woman who had spent years calling my patience maturity. "Why?" Her lips parted. No answer came. I left without touching the food in my car. I opened my notes app and wrote every sentence I remembered. Then I emailed Julian, per your request for a family conversation. I attended dinner at Evelyn Vale's home tonight. Present were you, Evelyn Vale, Sophie Grant, Claire Vale, and me during the conversation. I provided copies of the airport upgrade authorization, customer statement, account record, reunion note, receipts, and photographs of MS Grant's belongings found in the marital bathroom. You denied a physical affair but did not deny the documents. MS Grant stated, "It was first class, not a marriage bed. Going forward, please communicate through counsel." I copied Margaret, then I drove away. 10 minutes later, Claire texted me, "Claire, I'm sorry, I didn't know." I pulled over and stared at the message. It was not enough to heal anything, but it was the first crack in their wall. When I was 28, Julian told me he loved how practical I was. "You make life work," he said one night as I sat on the floor surrounded by invoices, planning our wedding under budget because his mother wanted elegance and his bank account wanted mercy. At the time I thought it was praise. Years later, I understood it was a job description. I made life work. He lived in it. The morning after Evelyn's dinner I began the account book. Not a metaphorical one, a real spreadsheet. Margaret requested financial disclosures, but I needed something more personal than court forms. I needed to see what my marriage had cost when love stopped being counted as love and started being counted as unpaid labor, emotional management, and invisible capital, mortgage contributions, utility payments, client dinners booked on my card, flights purchased through my travel profile, hotel upgrades redeemed from my points, Julian's conference fees I covered. During a temporary cash crunch, Evelyn's birthday dinner I paid for because Julian said his card was maxed until a commission cleared. Sofa-related charges I could identify: a bracelet, 2 wine bars, 1 spa gift certificate, a hotel bar bill on a night Julian told me he was in a lender meeting. The numbers did not shock me at first, then they did, not because I had lost money, because I had mistaken depletion for partnership. At 10:12 a.m. Julian's card was declined at the New York hotel for an incidental hold. I knew because he texted me immediately. Julian, did you freeze the travel card? I saved the message. Julian, Amelia, this is humiliating. Saved. Julian, I have Sophie standing in a lobby with luggage. Saved. Julian, are you seriously going to make me use my debit card like some college kid? That one I read twice, then I laughed so hard Nina came out of her office. What happened? I showed her. She read the line and stared. I need to sit down before I become violent. Apparently debit cards are for peasants and wives on standby. I saved the screenshot, then I replied with Margaret's approved sentence. Please direct financial questions to counsel. Julian responded instantly. Julian, I am your husband, not a legal question. I did not reply. Instead, I opened the banking portal and removed automatic transfers I had set up for Julian's professional memberships. They were not joint necessities, they were his expenses. He had added them years ago when we were combining things for simplicity. Simplicity was another word that had aged badly. Then I called the bank. The representative verified my identity and walked me through closing Julian's authorized user access to my business credit line. Will the authorized user be notified? She asked. Yes, I said. Please send formal notice. Reason for removal. I looked at the spreadsheet. Separation. There was a pause. I'm sorry. Thank you. After the call I sat very still. It was strange how small actions could feel enormous. Click access removed, click password changed, click transfer cancelled. For years, my love had moved automatically in the background. Now it required permission. At noon, Margaret called. His attorney contacted me. Already? Yes. Julian retained Paul Decker. I knew the name. Expensive, aggressive, friendly with people who described themselves as old school. What did he say? He claims you acted rashly, damaged Mr. Vale's professional reputation, and improperly interfered with business opportunities. I improperly interfered. That is their framing. What is ours? That you withdrew personal support, access, and authorization after documented marital misconduct and misuse of separate resources. That sounds better. It is also true. I closed my laptop. Can he force me to call Whitmore? No. Can he force me to restore the guarantee? Not unless a court finds some contractual obligation, which is unlikely. Before disbursement, the lender may still proceed without you if they want. That is between them and Julian. He'll say I ruined the deal. He can say the moon is a contract witness. Saying is not proving. I smiled despite myself. Margaret continued. However, expect pressure. The account book you're building will help. We need distinguish marital obligations from voluntary support. Keep everything. I am. Also, the airline sent the full record. Clara's statement is attached. She noted that Mr. Vale said Amelia will understand when authorizing MS Grant's upgrade. My hand tightened around the phone. Amelia will understand. How many injuries had entered my life under that sentence? Send it to me, I said. You may not enjoy reading it. I don't need to enjoy it, I need to remember. That afternoon Julian came to Nina's building. The front desk called up, MS Hart. There's a Julian Vale here asking to see you. My heart kicked once. Nina stood immediately. No. I pressed the intercom. Please tell him any communication must go through counsel. The concierge hesitated. He says it's personal. It is legal. 2 minutes later my phone rang. Julian, then a text. Julian, I am downstairs. Come down for 10 minutes. Then Julian, I flew home for you. For me. Not because New York had shut him out. Not because his card failed. Not because Sophie had become inconvenient. For me. I walked to the window. Nina's condo overlooked the street. Julian stood below in a dark coat, phone in hand, jaw tight. He looked up, scanning windows. For a moment I saw the man I married, the one who danced with me barefoot in our first apartment when the heat broke and we used the oven to warm the kitchen. The one who cried when my father died and held my hand through the funeral. The one who once wrote me notes on grocery receipts. That man had existed. That was the cruel part. Betrayal did not erase good memories, it infected them. My phone buzzed again. Julian, don't hide behind Nina. I stepped away from the window. That did it. Nina said, I am going downstairs. No, I only want to verbally rearrange him. No, instead I texted Margaret. Julian is outside Nina's building asking me to come down. I have refused. Her reply came quickly. Do not engage if he refuses to leave. Notify building security. Document time. I did. The concierge called again 5 minutes later. MS Hart, he is becoming insistent. Ask him to leave. If he doesn't, call building security. Nina's eyes gleamed. I love boundaries when they have staff. Julian left after 23 minutes. I documented it at 5:00 p.m. An email arrived from Paul Decker. Margaret forwarded it with a note, do not respond directly. Paul's email was pure Julian in legal clothing. Mrs. Vale's recent actions appear calculated to inflict maximum reputational and financial harm on Mr. Vale during a critical business trip. Mr. Vale denies any infidelity or marital misconduct. The travel seating issue has been exaggerated far beyond proportion. We request immediate restoration of business-related authorizations and a good faith meeting to resolve this private family matter. Private family matter. I thought of Clara in the lounge. The gate agent, the process server, Sophie in the hotel lobby, Evelyn at dinner. Julian had made it public when he thought only I would be ashamed. I forwarded Paul Decker's email into my records and added one line to my account book. Cost of silence. No longer available that night. Sophie unblocked herself by using a new number. Sophie, you got what you wanted. Julian is miserable. Does that make you feel powerful? I stared at the message, then another appeared. Sophie, he doesn't love paperwork. Amelia, he loves people who make him feel alive. Nina, reading over my shoulder, said, she really wants to be evidence. Let her. I took screenshots, then I typed one reply carefully. Do not contact me again. Further messages will be forwarded to counsel. She responded, Sophie, counsel won't make him love you. I saved it. For the first time it did not pierce me. Love, I was beginning to understand, was not proven by being chosen in private while disrespected in public. It was not love if it required me to disappear so another woman could feel alive. The next morning Margaret sent me the lender's reply. Mercer Street funding acknowledged receipt of my guarantee revocation. Disbursement was paused pending updated financial review. Julian called within 7 minutes. I did not answer. His voicemail was short. You have no idea what you've done. I stood in Nina's kitchen, coffee cooling in my hand. Actually, I did. That was why he was scared. Sophie asked to meet me on a Thursday, not directly. She was smarter now. She sent a message through Claire, who clearly hated being involved. Claire, Sophie says she wants to apologize. I told her I didn't think you'd want that, but she asked me to pass it along. I stared at the text. Nina, sitting across from me at her dining table, shook her head before I spoke. No, you don't know what I was going to say. You had evidence face. I want to hear what she thinks an apology is. That's how horror movies start. I won't go alone. You want me to come? No, I want to meet in a public place. And send the location to Margaret. Nina groaned. You and Margaret are ruining my dream of solving everything with dramatic wine throwing. I like your dreams, but you prefer admissible conduct. Exactly. Margaret advised against it, then gave instructions in case I insisted. Public location. No secret recording. Do not threaten. Do not discuss settlement terms. Leave if she becomes hostile. Immediately write notes afterward. I chose a coffee shop near Margaret's office. Glass walls. Noon crowd too many witnesses for Sophie to perform tragedy without reviews. She arrived 10 minutes late. Cream coat, soft curls, no visible bracelet. She looked around before sitting, as if expecting cameras. You came, she said. You asked. I wasn't sure you would. You seem determined to treat me like an enemy. I took a sip of coffee. Are you here to apologize? She looked wounded. I wanted to explain. Then explain. Sophie folded her hands. Her nails were pale pink, perfectly oval. Julian and I have history. I know, it wasn't just college dating. We were important to each other. I know, when my marriage ended I didn't plan to rely on him. It just happened. He was kind. That word again. Her brows pulled together. What? Kind? Is kindness offensive now? No. But borrowing someone's husband and calling it kindness is. Her face tightened. There she was again, beneath the softness. You don't know what it was like, she said. My divorce was brutal. My ex controlled everything, money, friends, the house. I felt invisible. For a moment I almost softened, then I remembered my name on a standby list. I'm sorry that happened to you, I said, but you don't cure invisibility by making another woman disappear. Sophie looked away. Outside, people crossed the street under umbrellas. A delivery cyclist yelled at a cab. Life continued with rude indifference. Julian said your marriage had been lonely for years, she said, my fingers stilled on the cup. He said you were more like partners than lovers, that you cared more about schedules and accounts than connection. I smiled faintly. Did he mention who kept the schedules and accounts so he could chase connection elsewhere? She flushed. He needed to feel seen. By sitting next to you in first class. You're obsessed with the flight. No, Sophie, you kept the boarding pass. Her eyes flickered. I had guessed. Her silence confirmed it. Why? I asked. She leaned back. Maybe because for once I was chosen. The honesty was ugly. I respected it. More than her tears. And you needed me to see it. No, yes. Her mouth tightened. Do you know what it's like to be the woman he almost married first? I stared at her. She continued, voice low. Everyone says first love is childish. But it isn't. Sometimes it's the truest version of you before life ruins everything. Julian and I had that. Then he married you. As an act of aggression against your destiny. You don't have to mock me. I do, actually. It keeps me from screaming. She looked around. Embarrassed. Good. I didn't pursue him during my marriage, she said. Congratulations. But when I came back I saw how he was with you, tired, managed like an employee reporting to a supervisor. That one landed not because I believed her, because I knew Julian had helped create that image. I became the woman who reminded him of deadlines because he forgot them. Then he resented me for sounding like a calendar. Sophie softened her voice. I think you loved the idea of building him. I love who he is. Underneath all that pressure, I set down my cup. Who is he underneath the pressure? She hesitated. I waited. She had no answer because Sophie did not know Julian underneath pressure. She knew Julian away from consequences, over wine, on phone calls, in airport lounges where someone else managed the boarding details. You want the version of him I maintained, I said, not the man who exists when no one pays the bills, remembers his mother's birthday, handles his lender panic, books his flights, checks his contracts and absorbs his moods. That's not fair. No, what happened at the airport was not fair. This is accurate. Sophie stared at me, then she smiled, not sadly, not kindly, a real smile. First class suited me better anyway. There it was, the sentence I needed. I did not record it. I did not need to. She had said it in a crowded coffee shop loud enough that the woman at the next table looked up. I leaned back. Thank you. Her smile faded. For what? For being honest. I am being honest, he wanted. Me there. Then why are you meeting me? Her eyes flashed. Because you're trying to ruin him. No, I'm refusing to hold him up. Same thing in your case. I almost admired her precision. Sophie knew exactly where Julian's strength came from. Is that why you wanted the Whitmore dinner? I asked. I didn't care about some dinner. Liar. Her mouth opened. I continued. Your ex-husband's family cut you out of their investment network after the divorce. Julian was your way back into rooms that used to open for you. Her expression changed. Before she could stop it, the financial motive, I had found it because Nina had found an article about Sophie's divorce. Her ex came from a private equity family. The settlement was sealed, but social pages were not. Sophie had vanished from donor circles after the split. Julian was not just nostalgia. He was access. You researched me, she asked. You entered my marriage. Research was polite. She stood so quickly her chair scraped. You think you're better than me because you have files. No, I think I'm safer because I have files. Her face flushed. Julian will hate you for this. Maybe. He already thinks you're cold. No, I said. He thinks the stove is cold because it stopped cooking for him. The woman at the next table coughed into her latte. Sophie grabbed her bag at the door. She turned back. He chose me when it mattered. I looked at her for a long second. No, I said. He exposed himself when it mattered. There's a difference. She left. I stayed. My hands were shaking under the table, but my breathing was calm. I opened my notes app and typed the conversation immediately. As Margaret instructed, Sophie stated. For once, I was chosen. Sophie stated. First class suited me better anyway. Sophie stated. He chose me when it mattered. Sophie referenced Julian saying our marriage was lonely and that I cared more about schedules and accounts than connection. Sophie became hostile when I mentioned Whitmore network access. I sent it to Margaret. Her response came 10 minutes later. Useful, especially motive and admissions of emotional significance tied to the upgrade. Useful, such a small, dry word. But it felt like placing another brick in a wall between me and the life trying to pull me back. That evening, Julian emailed me directly despite Margaret's instruction. Subject: Please stop, Amelia. I know you are angry. I know the airport hurt you, but this is becoming something neither of us can control. Sophie is leaving Seattle for a while because she feels attacked. My lender is nervous. My mother is upset. Claire won't speak to me. Are you happy now? I made a mistake. I should have given you the seat there. I said it, but you are acting like I had an affair in front of you. I did not. I helped an old friend. You turned that into legal warfare. Call me Jay. I read it twice. Then I forwarded it to Margaret. Then, because he had finally written one sentence that almost resembled accountability, I allowed myself to write a response through counsel. Margaret approved the wording. Julian, this is not about one seat. The airport incident was the visible moment in a longer pattern of emotional betrayal, misuse of my separate resources, and public disrespect. I am not interested in private reconciliation. Please communicate through counsel. Amelia. I hit send. He replied 2 minutes later. You used to be warm. I stared at it, then I typed nothing. Warmth, I had learned, was what people missed when they had been using you as shelter. Julian tried to attend the Whitmore dinner anyway. I knew because Eleanor called me herself the next morning. Her voice was polished and older than mine, shaped by boardrooms, grief, and money that had learned manners. Amelia, she said, I wanted you to hear this from me before it reaches you through less elegant channels. Julian came. He did. With Sophie. Yes, I closed my eyes. I was in Nina's guest room, sitting on the edge of the bed with a legal pad in my lap. Sunlight fell across the floor. Outside, a dog barked at nothing. What happened? I asked. He arrived at the donor entrance and claimed there had been a misunderstanding with registration. He said you were delayed and that Ms. Grant would attend in your place. Of course he did. In your place, a phrase that had become the theme of my marriage, and our staff informed him that invitations were not transferable and that he was listed only as your spouse, not as an independent guest. I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. Was there a scene? A contained one, Eleanor said. Mr. Vale insisted he had business to discuss with several attendees. Ms. Grant seemed uncomfortable. Our security director handled it discreetly. Did he embarrass you? No dear, he embarrassed himself. That sentence sat down beside me and put a hand on my shoulder. Eleanor continued. I also want you to know that 2 people asked me afterward whether Mr. Vale was still connected to your consulting work. I said I could not comment on personal matters, but I would confirm that you remain the trusted party in our relationship. Trusted party, not wife, not victim. Trusted party. Thank you, I said. I have been in rooms with men like Julian for 40 years, Eleanor said. They mistake access for achievement. It is a common illness. I laughed softly. You are welcome here when you are ready, she added, alone if you prefer. I do. After we hung up, I sat very still. Then I opened my laptop and wrote an email I should have written months ago to every client, vendor, and professional contact whose relationship had originated with me but had become blurred by Julian's constant presence. I sent a simple update. Due to personal and legal changes, Julian Vale is no longer authorized to represent me, my consulting work, my client relationships, or my professional introductions. Please direct all communication related to my projects to me only. No accusations, no drama, just a door closing. Within an hour, replies began. Thank you for letting us know. Wishing you strength. Understood. One from a florist I had used for years. Simply said, about time. I stared at that one for a long moment. How many people had seen what I refused to name? That afternoon, Julian's professional unraveling began in quiet ways. A client assistant emailed him asking for confirmation that Amelia would be attending the Harbor House meeting. He forwarded it to me with a single line, "Can you please just confirm attendance so this doesn't get worse?" I replied through Margaret, Ms. Hart will not attend meetings on Mr. Vale's behalf. Another contact removed. Julian from a planning thread. A hotel called him to say his preferred rate was tied to my account and could not be extended. The Mercer lender requested updated collateral. None of these things ruined him. That mattered. I did not destroy Julian. I removed myself. He had to discover what weight he could carry without me. By 4:00 p.m., he called Margaret's office and asked for an emergency settlement meeting. Margaret told me over the phone with a hint of dry amusement, "He is motivated. He wants the guarantee restored, among other things." What other things? Access to the Whitmore relationship. A statement that there was no marital misconduct. Temporary use of your travel account until business matters stabilize. I laughed. It came out too loud. Nina shouted from her office, "Whatever he asked for, no." Margaret continued, "I already declined informally, but he may make it part of negotiation. He wants me to certify my own replacement as a misunderstanding. That is one interpretation. What is yours? He wants the benefits of marriage without the accountability of being a husband." I wrote that down, not for court, for myself. The settlement meeting was scheduled for Monday. Julian did not wait. He came to the house Saturday morning while I was there with movers. Not professional movers, just Nina, her cousin Mark and me. We were collecting the last of my personal things and photographing shared property for inventory. I had told Margaret I had notified Julian's counsel. I had chosen a time when Julian was supposedly at his office. He arrived. Anyway, his car screeched slightly at the curb, Nina muttered. Of course he learned dramatic entrances from community theatre villains. Julian got out wearing jeans, a black sweater, and the expression of a man who had rehearsed pain in the mirror. What are you doing? He demanded. I stood on the porch holding a box of books. Removing personal property. Your attorney was notified. He looked past me at Mark carrying a lamp. Who the hell is that? Someone helping me move. His eyes snapped back to mine. You're bringing men into our house now. Nina laughed. Mark is gay and engaged, but thank you for revealing your operating system. Mark lifted 2 fingers. Hi. Julian ignored them. Amelia, send them away. No, I need to talk to you. Your lawyer can talk to mine. His face twisted. Stop saying that. Stop creating reasons for me to say it. He stepped onto the porch. I did not move back. That surprised him. For years, I made room automatically in hallways, conversations, arguments, decisions. I stepped aside so Julian could pass through life unbruised. Not today. His voice dropped. You are enjoying this? No. Then why are you doing it? Because the alternative is continuing to let you treat my life like an aisle seat you can trade away. He flinched. Good. It was one flight, he said. It was one public summary of everything private. He looked exhausted suddenly. Sophie is gone. I blinked. What? She went to Portland to stay with a friend. She said this was too much. Nina whispered. Trash took itself out. I kept my eyes on Julian. You expect that to matter to me? I expect you to understand that I chose to come here. You came because the Whitmore door closed, the lender paused, your mother panicked, and Sophie discovered consequences. His face hardened. You always do that. What? Make everything sound like a transaction. I stepped closer. No, I started naming the transactions you hid inside emotion. His mouth shut. Behind him, a neighbor slowed while walking her dog. Julian noticed and lowered his voice. Can we please go inside? No, this is our home. It was. Don't say that. I already moved out. You didn't have to. Yes, I did. For a second his expression cracked, the anger drained, leaving something younger and frightened. Amelia, he said quietly. I don't know how we got here. That was the first true sentence he had spoken. I almost answered gently, then I remembered the lounge, not because I wanted to stay angry, because truth without memory becomes a trap. We got here one understanding at a time. I said, every time I understood why you forgot me, why you needed me, why Sophie needed you, why your mother pressured me, why the money was temporary, why the late call mattered, why the dinner wasn't romantic, why the bracelet was innocent, why the seat was just a seat, I understood myself out of a marriage. His eyes reddened. Did you ever think maybe I needed you to fight for me? He asked. I stared at him. There it is, I said. What? You left me at the gate and somehow I failed you by not chasing. He looked away. I held the box tighter. No, Julian, I am done auditioning for a place I already had. I walked past him to the car. He did not stop me, but as I put the box in Nina's trunk he said, I won't sign. I turned. The old Julian was back, proud, cornered, certain refusal was power. Then don't, I said. A judge can end what you won't admit is over. His face went pale. I got into the car. As we drove away, I looked back once. Julian stood on the porch of the house we bought together, surrounded by the absence of everything I had taken. He had finally come home, but I no longer lived there. The Monday settlement meeting took place in a conference room with no windows. That seemed appropriate. Some conversations did not deserve natural light. Julian sat across from me with Paul Decker on his right. Margaret sat beside me with a yellow legal pad, 2 pens, and the calm of a woman who had watched worse men overestimate themselves. In better suits, Julian looked at me before anyone spoke. Not at Margaret, not at the documents, at me. I looked back. He had shaved. He wore a charcoal suit I had chosen for him 3 years ago. The tie was slightly wrong, too wide for the lapel. I would have fixed it once without thinking. My hand stayed in my lap. Paul Decker began. We are here to de-escalate, he said. Mr. Vale believes this marriage has suffered a painful misunderstanding but not an irreparable breakdown. Margaret wrote something down. I hoped it was painful misunderstanding equals first-class mistress. Paul continued. Our priority is to avoid reputational damage to both parties. Both? Margaret asked. Yes. What reputational damage has Mrs. Vale caused? Serving divorce papers at an airport in the presence of a third party was extreme. Your client brought the third party. Paul smiled thinly. Ms. Grant is not a party to this marriage. She was party to the upgrade. Julian's jaw tightened. Paul shifted. The travel incident has taken on outsized significance. Mr. Vale is prepared to apologize for mishandling seating arrangements. Margaret looked at me. I gave a small nod. Julian leaned forward. His voice was controlled but strained. I should have given you the seat, he said. I see that now. I waited. He swallowed. I should not have asked you to wait. I should not have used your account without discussing it. The words were correct. The feeling behind them was harder to locate. And, Margaret asked. Julian's eyes flicked to her. And I regret that it hurt Amelia. I smiled faintly. He noticed. What? He asked. You regret that it hurt me, not that you did it. His face flushed. I just apologized. You performed one. Paul held up a hand. Let's keep this productive. Productive for whom? I asked. For both parties. Good. Then let's discuss the terms. Paul opened a folder. We are asking that Mrs. Vale temporarily reinstate limited business authorizations related to existing projects, specifically Mercer Street and Whitmore contacts, while the parties pursue counseling. No, I said. The room paused. Paul looked at Margaret as if I had spoken out of turn. Margaret looked delighted in a way only I could detect. Paul cleared his throat. Perhaps you should review. I understand the request. The answer is no. Julian stared at me. You won't even consider counseling. No, because of Sophie. Because of you. He flinched. I continued. Sophie did not marry me. Sophie did not promise fidelity to me. Sophie did not use my account, lie about dinners, bring another woman's belongings into my bathroom, or tell me I was embarrassing her by reacting to my own humiliation. His face tightened. I told you nothing physical happened. That has become less impressive every time you say it. Paul interjected. There is no evidence of a physical affair. Margaret slid a document forward. There is evidence of emotional misconduct, financial misuse, reputational harm, and third-party involvement. The prenup does not require proof of physical intercourse for reimbursement or asset protection clauses. Paul read the marked clause. His expression changed by 1 degree. Julian looked at him. What does that mean? Paul did not answer immediately. Margaret did. It means your wife was better protected than you assumed. The silence that followed was worth every legal fee. We moved through terms. Sale of the house or buyout, reimbursement for separate account misuse, removal of Julian from my business and travel accounts, confirmation that I had no obligation to restore the Mercer guarantee, mutual non-disparagement with exceptions for legal proceedings and truthful statements to financial institutions, return of personal property. Julian listened as if each clause translated love into a language he hated. Finally he said, "This is cold." I looked at him. No. Cold was telling me Sophie got anxious on flights while I stood there with a standby slip. His eyes glistened. Paul shifted uncomfortably. Margaret remained still. Julian leaned back. I made you my wife. The words were so old-fashioned, so revealing that even Paul looked alarmed. I felt no anger, only astonishment. You made me your wife, I repeated. You know what I mean. I don't think you know what you mean. I gave you a life. I laughed once quietly. It frightened him more than shouting would have. You gave me a last name and a mortgage. I said, I gave you credibility, contacts, cash flow, patience, forgiveness, and a home that kept looking peaceful no matter what you dragged into it. Julian's eyes dropped. I opened my folder. I have the account book. Paul frowned. What account book? I slid copies across the table. 5 years of voluntary payments, business expenses, travel redemptions, household shortfalls, family events, and third-party charges. We can discuss what is reimbursable and what is simply educational. Margaret's mouth twitched. Julian flipped through the pages. His face changed slowly, not because the numbers were new to him, because seeing them together made denial harder. Evelyn's birthday dinner. He said, you asked me to cover it because your commission was delayed. That was family. Your family told me not to embarrass them over a seat. He turned another page. The conference fee, temporary cash crunch. Another page. The hotel bar wasn't with Sophie on a night you told me you were in a lender meeting. His mouth closed. Paul leaned toward him and murmured something. Julian shoved the papers down. This is what you've been doing, building a case. No, I said, I was building a marriage. The case was what it looked like when I stopped lying about the materials. His eyes locked on mine. For a moment all the legal language fell away. There we were, the man who left, the woman who did not wait. Did you ever love me? He asked. The question was too intimate for that room. Paul looked away. Margaret's pen stopped. I answered anyway. Yes. Julian's face twisted. Then how can you do this? Because I loved you, not because I stopped, because I finally understood that loving you was not a reason to keep abandoning myself. He covered his mouth with one hand. I looked at the man I had loved and felt grief move through me like weather. It passed. Paul asked for a break. Julian refused to leave the room, so Margaret and I stepped into the hallway. You're doing well, she said. I don't feel well. Those are different things. I leaned against the wall. Down the hall, a young couple sat with a mediator. The woman cried quietly. The man stared at his shoes. Divorce had a soundtrack, soft weeping, low voices, paper sliding across tables. Margaret lowered her voice. He may not settle today, I know, but his attorney now understands the prenup risk. Will that matter? Yes, men who claim principles often discover math. I almost smiled when we returned. Julian was standing by the conference room window that wasn't there, staring at a blank wall as if it might open. Paul spoke first. We need additional time to review disclosures, of course, Margaret said, but temporary restrictions remain. Julian looked at me. What about the house? What about it? I went there last night. My chest tightened despite myself. It doesn't feel like home. I said nothing. Your books are gone, he said. The blue chair is gone. The kitchen looks. He stopped. Functional. I offered. Empty. I looked at him then. That is what you left me with at the gate. His eyes filled. For once, he had no answer. The meeting ended without settlement. In the elevator down, Julian stepped in just before the doors closed. Margaret's eyes sharpened, but Paul was with him, so she allowed it. We rode down in silence at the lobby. Julian spoke softly. Amelia. I looked at him. Was there ever a moment I could have stopped this? I thought about lying, then I thought about the lounge. Yes, I said. When Clara asked who should receive the upgrade, the doors opened. I walked out first. The temporary orders hearing was scheduled 3 weeks after the airport. 3 weeks was enough time for Julian to move from rage to bargaining to nostalgia and back to rage again. It was also enough time for Sophie to stop pretending she had nothing to do with anything. Her messages to me stopped after Margaret sent a formal notice, but her messages to Julian did not. I knew because Julian, in a spectacular act of self-damage, submitted selected text threads to prove that Sophie was emotionally fragile and that he had been acting out of concern. Paul Decker likely wanted to submit 3 messages. Julian sent 27. Margaret called me the moment the production arrived. You need to see these. Bad, useful. I went to her office. She handed me the printed thread. Sophie, I can't sit in coach right now. I know that sounds spoiled. I just need to feel safe. Julian, Amelia can handle it. Sophie, she hates me. Julian, she doesn't hate you. She just doesn't understand our history. Sophie, I don't want to cause trouble. Julian, you're not. I want you next to me. Sophie, what about Amelia? Julian, she'll be fine. She always is. I stopped reading. She'll be fine. She always is. Margaret watched my face. Do you need a moment? No, I kept reading. Sophie, first class with you feels like college again. Before everything got ruined. Julian, maybe some things don't get ruined. Maybe they wait. Sophie, don't say that unless you mean it. Julian, I don't know what I mean anymore. Sophie, I do. I set the papers down. Margaret said, I am sorry. I nodded. It was strange. I had imagined worse, more explicit, more sexual, more undeniable, but this was enough. Maybe some things wait. While I paid the mortgage, while I packed his cufflinks, while I stood on standby. The hearing was held in a modest courtroom that smelled faintly of paper, coffee, and old carpet. Julian sat at the opposite table in a dark suit. Evelyn sat behind him. Sophie was not there at first. I thought maybe she had finally understood shame. Then the doors opened 5 minutes before the judge entered and she slipped into the back row wearing black. Nina sat beside me, not as a witness, as ballast. You okay? She whispered. No. Clear. Yes. Good. The judge was a woman named Honorable Denise Carver. She had silver-rimmed glasses and the expression of someone who had no patience left for adults behaving like unsupervised furniture. Temporary orders were usually practical: accounts, house access, payments, communication. But because Julian claimed my actions had financially harmed him and because I claimed misuse of separate resources and coercive pressure, Margaret presented the airport incident as the trigger for necessary boundaries. Paul tried to minimize it. Your Honor, this matter began with a travel disagreement. Judge Carver looked over her glasses. Most divorces do not begin with happy brunch. A small sound moved through the room. Paul continued carefully. Mr. Vale acknowledges poor judgment regarding seating arrangements. However, Mrs. Vale responded disproportionately by serving him publicly, revoking business support and interfering with professional relationships. Margaret stood. Your Honor, Mrs. Vale did not interfere. She withdrew her separate property, separate account access, personal guarantee prior to loan disbursement, and professional authorization after Mr. Vale used her individual travel resources to benefit a third party with whom he had an emotionally inappropriate relationship. Evidence. The judge asked. Margaret handed up the packet. Upgrade authorization, standby record, Clara's statement, Julian's texts, Sophie messages, account book summary, prenup clauses. The judge read silently. Julian did not look at me. Sophie did. Her face was pale. When Margaret read Clara's statement aloud, the courtroom became unbearably still. Mr. Vale stated, Amelia will understand. When confirming that the upgrade should be assigned to MS Grant, Judge Carver looked at Julian. Did you say that? Paul whispered to him. Julian swallowed. I don't remember the exact wording. That was not my question. His face flushed. I may have. And your wife was placed on standby. There was likely to be another seat. Was she in first class beside you? No. Was MS Grant? Yes. The judge looked back at the papers. Paul stood. Again, Your Honor, no physical affair has been proven. Judge Carver looked unimpressed. I am not here to adjudicate moral purity. I am here to decide whether temporary financial and communication boundaries are reasonable. Please proceed. Nina's knee pressed briefly against mine under the table. Then Sophie was called, not by us, by Paul. It was a mistake. He likely thought her soft voice would make Julian look compassionate. Sophie took the stand and swore to tell the truth. Paul began gently. MS Grant, did you intend to interfere in the Vale's marriage? No. Did Mr. Vale assist you during a difficult personal period? Yes. Did you ask him to divorce his wife? No. Did anything physical occur between you and Mr. Vale? Sophie looked at Julian. No. Paul nodded, satisfied. Then Margaret stood. MS Grant, you were present in the airport lounge on the day in question. Yes. You received a first-class upgrade from Mr. Vale. Yes, but I didn't realize. Please answer only the question. Did you know Mrs. Vale was placed on standby? Sophie hesitated. Yes. Did you keep the first-class boarding pass? I offered to switch. Did you surrender the pass to the agent? No. Did you board in first class? Yes. Beside Mr. Vale? Yes. Margaret lifted a paper. In your text to Mr. Vale you wrote, I can't sit in coach right now, I just need to feel safe, correct? Sophie swallowed. Yes. And Mr. Vale replied, Amelia can handle it, correct? Yes. Did you understand Amelia to be his wife? Of course. Did you text Mrs. Vale afterward from a different number after she asked you not to contact her? Sophie looked down. Yes. What did you write? Paul stood. Objection. Relevance. Margaret replied. Goes to harassment and the need for communication restrictions. Judge Carver allowed it. Sophie whispered. I don't remember exactly. Margaret read from the exhibit. You wrote, counsel won't make him love you. Did you send that? Sophie closed her eyes. Yes. Julian turned in his chair. He had not known that was clear. Good. Margaret continued. You also told Mrs. Vale in a public coffee shop, first class suited me better anyway. Paul objected again. The judge allowed Margaret to proceed as an offer of context but not as sworn prior statement unless Sophie admitted it. Sophie looked trapped. I was upset. Did you say it? A long pause. Yes. The courtroom did not gasp. Real life rarely gave you gasps, but Evelyn put one hand over her mouth. Julian stared at Sophie as if seeing her without lighting for the first time. Margaret sat. The judge issued temporary orders that afternoon. Julian would have no access to my separate accounts, travel resources, business contacts, or personal credit lines. The Mercer guarantee revocation stood pending lender review. Communication would occur through counsel except emergencies involving shared property. Neither party would remove or dissipate assets. The house would be listed for valuation. Julian's request that I issue a reputational statement denying misconduct was denied. When the judge said that part, Julian closed his eyes. Afterward in the hallway, Evelyn approached me. Her pearls were absent. She looked smaller without them. Amelia, she said. Nina stiffened beside me. I said, yes. Evelyn's mouth trembled before she controlled it. I didn't know about the messages. No, you only knew enough to blame me. She flinched. I am sorry, she said. I believed that she was sorry. I did not believe she understood all the way down. Thank you, I said. Her eyes filled. He is my son, I know, and you were my daughter-in-law. No, I said gently. I was the woman keeping your son presentable. She looked away. Julian came out of the courtroom. Then he saw us. Amelia, he called. I turned. For the first time, Sophie stood behind him and he did not move toward her. He moved toward me. Too late, always too late. Can we talk? He asked. I looked at the courthouse doors, bright with afternoon light. No, his face broke. I walked outside. Behind me I heard Evelyn say his name. I did not turn back. The final family dinner was Julian's idea. Margaret advised me not to go. Nina threatened to fake a medical emergency to stop me. Even Claire texted, "You don't owe us this." They were all right. I went anyway, not because I owed the Vale family another evening, because I wanted to end the story in the room where they had tried to rewrite it. This time I set the terms: daytime, no Sophie unless everyone agreed. She would be part of the conversation. Claire present, no documents signed, no private conversation. I would stay 1 hour. Evelyn agreed. Julian did not respond directly, which meant he hated every term but had no better option. Evelyn's dining room looked different in daylight, less formal, less intimidating. The lake outside was pale blue. The flowers on the table were yellow tulips, not white roses. I wondered if Evelyn bought them because I once said yellow made rooms kinder. Then I stopped wondering. Not every detail needed to be evidence. Julian was already there when I arrived, so was Claire, so was Sophie. That surprised me. She sat at the far end of the table, not beside Julian. Her face was bare of makeup. She looked less like a rival and more like a woman who had bet on the wrong man's borrowed life. Evelyn greeted me at the door. "Thank you for coming. I have 1 hour." "I know." We sat. No one touched the tea. Julian spoke first. "I asked Sophie to come because I wanted everything clear." Sophie looked at him sharply. I leaned back. This was new. Julian's hands were clasped on the table. "I told myself I was helping her," he said. "I told myself Amelia was strong and Sophie was fragile. I told myself that made my choices kind." His voice roughened. "But I liked being needed by someone who didn't know my failures." The room stilled. Sophie looked down. Julian continued. "Amelia knew them. She knew every late payment, every deal I overstated, every time I forgot something important. She made things work, and I resented her for seeing the work." I did not speak. This was not forgiveness, this was testimony. He looked at me. "I made you into the person responsible for my life, then punished you for carrying it." My throat tightened despite all my defenses. Evelyn cried silently. Claire watched her brother with open grief. Sophie whispered, "Julian." He turned to her. "And you," he said. She flinched. "I used you too." Her face went pale. "I made you feel like a lost chance because it was easier than admitting I was a bad husband. I let you believe there was some grand unfinished love story because it made me feel less ordinary." Sophie stood. "Don't do this." He looked exhausted. "It's true." "No, you're saying this because she won." I almost laughed at the word won, as if this were a game and the prize was a man who could abandon one woman and disappoint another in the same week. Sophie turned to me. "Are you happy now?" I held her gaze. "No." That seemed to confuse her. "Then what do you want?" "My life back." She had no answer. Julian said softly, "Sophie, I'm sorry." "For what?" She snapped. "For choosing me or for not choosing me enough?" There it was, the entire triangle in one sentence. Julian closed his eyes. "For bringing you into a marriage I had no courage to end honestly." Sophie laughed once, bitter and small. "You told me you were lonely." You told me she didn't understand you." I said a lot of things that made me the victim. Sophie looked at Evelyn, then Claire, then me. For the first time there was nowhere for her softness to land. She picked up her bag. "I lost my marriage already," she said. "I won't sit here and lose my dignity for yours." Then she walked out. No one followed, not even Julian. The front door closed. Evelyn covered her face. Claire exhaled like she had been holding her breath for years. Julian looked at me. "I know this doesn't change anything." "No," I said, "it doesn't." But I wanted to say it without a lawyer. I studied him. The confession mattered. Not enough to restore trust, but enough to let truth enter the room where excuses had lived. Evelyn lowered her hands. "Amelia, I owe you an apology." I waited. "I treated your steadiness like it was endless. I thought because you handled things well they didn't hurt you." Claire said quietly, "Mom." Evelyn shook her head. "No, she should hear it." She looked at me. "I preferred Sophie because she made Julian seem younger, easier, less burdened. I see now that what I called your coldness was exhaustion." I felt the sentence land, not as healing, as acknowledgement. "I appreciate that," I said. Evelyn reached for my hand, then stopped herself. Good, she was learning. "What happens now?" she asked. "The house will be valued. Julian and I will divide what must be divided. I am keeping my name, my accounts, my clients, and my peace." Julian looked at my bare hand. "You'll go back to Hart." "I already have." His face tightened. "I don't know who I am without you," he said. "A year ago that would have pulled me back. Today It only made me sad. That is exactly why I have to leave, I said. I cannot be your identity and still have my own. He nodded slowly like a man accepting a sentence. Claire wiped her eyes. Evelyn asked, will you ever forgive us? I thought about it. I don't know, I said, but forgiveness, if it comes, will not be access. Evelyn bowed her head. Julian stood and walked to the sideboard. For a second I thought he needed water. Instead, he picked up a small velvet box. My body went cold. He brought it to the table and opened it. Inside was my wedding ring, not the one I had taken off at the airport. That ring was still in my possession. This was the matching anniversary band he gave me on our 5th anniversary, the one I stopped wearing when it felt too heavy. I found it in the house, he said, in your jewelry tray. I left it there. I thought maybe you forgot. No, he flinched. I wanted to give it back. Why? His eyes filled. Because I don't know what else to do with it. I looked at the ring. A circle, a promise, a small bright object that had survived longer than the vows attached to it. Sell it, I said. He stared. Use the money to pay part of what you owe. Claire made a sound halfway between shock and admiration. Evelyn closed her eyes. Julian looked at the ring as if it had turned into a document. Maybe it had. Everything did eventually. He shut the box. I deserve that. Yes, I said. You do. The hour was nearly over. I stood. Julian stood too. Amelia. I looked at him one last time in that dining room. Did I lose you at the airport? He asked. I thought about the question, then I answered honestly. No, you lost me slowly. The airport was just where I stopped pretending you hadn't. He nodded. A tear slipped down his face. I did not wipe it away. I did not hate him. That was almost harder. Hate would have made leaving feel simpler. Instead, I felt grief, clarity, and a deep tired tenderness for the woman I had been, the woman who waited, the woman who understood, the woman who packed cufflinks for a man who would not save her a seat. I walked to the door. Evelyn followed me. At the threshold she said, you deserved better from this family. I looked back at the house, the lake, the table, the people who had mistaken my endurance for consent. Yes, I said. Then I left. The divorce was finalized on a clear morning in April. No rain, no dramatic sky, just sunlight on courthouse steps and people walking past with coffee, briefcases, strollers, headphones, ordinary lives. I wore a navy suit I had once packed for New York, not the dress I planned for the Whitmore dinner. That stayed in a garment bag for months until I donated it to an organization that provided interview clothes for women rebuilding after divorce. It felt right. Some clothes did not need revenge. They needed new bodies with new futures. Julian arrived before me. He stood near the courthouse entrance with Paul Decker, looking thinner but composed. His hair was shorter. His suit fit badly at the shoulders, maybe because I had not scheduled his tailor. Evelyn was not there. Sophie was not there. Nina was. She handed me coffee and said, Happy Legal Independence Day. That's not a thing. It is now. Margaret arrived with the final documents in a leather folder. Ready? She asked. I looked at Julian. He looked back. This time there was no anger in his face, no performance, no demand. Only loss. Yes, I said. The hearing was brief. Most endings are. Once the fighting is done, the house would be sold. My separate accounts remained mine. Julian owed reimbursement for documented misuse of my travel resources and selected personal funds. The Mercer Street deal had fallen apart, not because I destroyed it, but because the lender found Julian's financial position weaker than represented once my guarantee disappeared. He kept his firm, smaller, bruised. His mother helped him stabilize it. Claire told me later he stopped taking calls from Sophie after the last dinner. Sophie moved to Portland, then Los Angeles. She tried to re-enter donor circles through someone else. Maybe she succeeded, maybe she didn't. Her life was no longer a room I stood in. When the judge asked if the marriage was irretrievably broken, Julian looked at me. I answered first, Yes, Your Honor. Julian swallowed. Yes. The gavel did not bang. There was no cinematic final sound, just a signature, a stamp, a clerk sliding papers into place, and then I was Amelia Hart again, outside the courtroom. Julian approached me carefully. Margaret stayed close but did not intervene. Nina watched with the expression of a woman prepared to become a misdemeanor. Julian held an envelope. I won't keep you, he said. Okay. He looked down at the envelope. I sold the anniversary band. I was surprised. He handed me a cashier's check, applied to what I owe. He said, Paul already sent confirmation to Margaret. This is the copy. I took the envelope. Thank you. He nodded. For a moment we stood in the courthouse hallway like strangers waiting for different elevators. Then he said, I went to the airport last week. My chest tightened. Why? I had a meeting in Denver, regular commercial flight, no upgrades, no lounge. He smiled faintly without humor. My boarding group was last. I said nothing. I kept thinking about you standing there watching me walk away. His voice broke. I don't know how you stayed so calm. I wasn't calm, I was done. He nodded slowly. I understand that now. Maybe he did, maybe he only understood the cost, it no longer mattered. I hope you build a good life, Julian. I said, his eyes filled. Do you mean that? Yes. Without me, yes. He looked away, then he said the thing I had once wanted desperately to hear. I loved you badly. I closed my eyes for 1 second. When I opened them, I was still free. Yes, I said. You did. He nodded, no defense, no explanation, no request. That was the closest thing to dignity he could offer me. I accepted it by leaving. 3 months later, I flew to New York, not for Julian, not for Whitmore Damage Control, for myself. Eleanor invited me to consult on a restoration project for a historic women's residence in Brooklyn. The building had once housed young women arriving in the city with no husbands, no family money, and no guarantee of safety. Eleanor wanted it turned into a modern foundation space for women starting over. I said yes before fear could turn the word into a committee meeting. At the airport, I arrived early, old habit. I checked my bag, passed security, and walked to the lounge. Not the same lounge, a different terminal, different city, same type of marble counter, same hush of people pretending travel made them important. The agent scanned my boarding pass. Welcome, Ms. Hart, you're in seat 1A today. For a second I could not move. Seat 1A. A year ago, that seat would have felt like proof that someone chose me. Now it felt like something better, proof that I had chosen myself. I found a quiet chair near the window and ordered coffee. No champagne, no performance, no one beside me to validate the space. My phone buzzed. Nina, if there is a man near you, glare at him for me. I smiled. Me, there is a businessman eating almonds aggressively. Nina, unacceptable. Divorce him too. I laughed out loud. A woman across from me smiled politely. I looked out at the runway. Planes moved in clean lines, arrivals, departures, delays, connections, standby lists. I thought of the woman I had been in Seattle, holding that slip while Sophie held my seat. I wanted to reach back through time and take her hand, not to warn her, she already knew, to thank her for not boarding, for not begging, for preserving the record, for calling Margaret, for understanding that disappearance was not weakness when staying meant erasure. An announcement came over the speaker. First-class passengers for Flight 302 to New York may now board. I stood, my suitcase rolled smoothly behind me at the gate. The agent smiled. Good morning, Ms. Hart. Good morning. She scanned my boarding pass. The machine chimed, clean, certain, no standby. As I stepped onto the jet bridge, my phone buzzed once more. An email from Eleanor. Subject: Welcome back, dear Amelia. A car will meet you on arrival. Only you. Warmly, Eleanor. Only you. I looked down the jet bridge toward the open aircraft door. For years, I believed love meant making room. I still believed that, but I no longer believed making room meant giving up my seat. I walked onto the plane, turned left, and sat in 1A. The flight attendant offered to hang my coat. I thanked her. Outside the window, the runway stretched ahead. For the first time in my adult life, I was not tracking anyone else's boarding pass, anyone else's comfort, anyone else's fragile need to be seen. I fastened my seat belt. The plane began to move, and when it lifted into the sky, I did not look back.